You can't tone a muscle. You can't make it look longer, leaner, thinner, whatever people say, you know. It's a bit of a pet peeve of mine, actually. I know we're getting maybe a little overly technical, but I'm going to explain why this is important, why you can't tone a muscle, so you can understand building muscle a little better. Because a lot of people think, oh, well, as long as I tone my muscles, I'm going to look better. In this video, I'm going to explain to y'all why this is the wrong mindset. And with the correct mindset, it might allow you to rethink how to build your body and aesthetics a little better, which obviously goes into health maxing. So what do people actually mean when they say, I want to tone my muscles? And I find that women usually say this because men generally just want more muscle and bigger muscles. Whereas women tend to say, I don't want to look bulky, or I don't want to look too muscular. Sorry, yeah, I'm shaking my head because it makes no sense. All you simply need to know is that your body can either build muscle, lose muscle, gain fat, or lose fat. Well, and water comes with, when you actually build muscle, you create more intracellular water retention, because muscle is composed of about 80% water. So you shouldn't actually be that concerned if you're holding in more water. But anyway, that's besides the point. You can really only do those 4 things to change the way you look. You can't tone something. What does that even mean? I don't ask that anymore because I try to stay neutral and I go, oh, cool. There's no point in arguing that. But since this is my channel and I want to talk about it, please tell me in the comments below, what does toning a muscle actually mean? Or what does getting toned mean? Now, obviously, I understand what it means, but from a sports science perspective, a physiological perspective, it doesn't make any sense. You don't get toned. You can't get toned. But I think the colloquial definition of getting toned means being more defined, looking leaner. That's better than saying getting toned, because you can look toned in many different ways. And that's the problem. When you say it like that, I don't actually know what your goals are, because technically speaking, you can be super muscular and not that lean, and you can still look toned, right? But you can also not have that much muscle, have very low body fat, and also look toned. So it doesn't really describe someone's physique very well. I mean, I think most people get the gist of what it actually means, but as a personal trainer, as someone who's an exercise specialist, in order to help someone achieve their goals, I need to know what exactly is it that we need to do. So, for example, I have, let's say, a client who's a male, 30 years old, let's say 5'10", and wants to lose some body fat and build some muscle because they're relatively sedentary. But they have a slight bit of muscle because they used to play basketball, okay? So they've got a bit of legs, maybe a little bit of arms, but nothing else really. Okay, they come and say, I want to get toned. What do I do with that information? I can end up helping them build some more muscle. I can help them lose some fat and then build muscle. This is what I mean. We need to be specific. So usually I try to ask someone when they say, I want to get toned, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? Then we can get into the specifics, right? They say, oh, well, actually, I would like to build just a little bit of muscle, but not too much, and then lose some fat. And that's generally the case by what they mean. So we have to make sure we understand what does that actually mean. So when someone says, oh, I want to get toned, why don't you ask them, what do you mean by that? What does getting toned mean? And some people really can't describe it, or they genuinely believe a muscle can get more toned. You can't tone a muscle. It doesn't work that way. It either builds or it loses. It's that simple. Okay, so anyone that thinks they can shape their muscles a specific way, unfortunately, that's not possible. And that's where bodybuilding, a lot of it is genetic, in a sense, where how do your muscles insert, right? How do they insert? And their muscle belly, right? That also matters too. So the size in which, or how it grows in its specific belly also matters too. So some people might have a really, like for example, me, I don't have a really full chest. It doesn't insert that well, where some people, theirs insert relatively lower. So then when they build a lot more mass, it can look much fuller and more round. Stuff like that. I'm not an expert in bodybuilding. I don't care for this. So I don't really know too much about it, but that's what bodybuilding is about. And that's why some physiques, even if they have the same amount of muscle and same amount of body fat, one might look significantly better than the other. That's also down to symmetry too. Yeah, that's the other one, the main one, symmetry, right? And I think studies have shown that faces that are more symmetrical also are more attractive. So yeah, not much you can do about that. Well, face actually you can, because there's cosmetic surgery, but with body parts, nah, good luck. If you have one pec that sags a bit lower and the other is a bit higher, yeah, I'm sorry, you're not cut out for bodybuilding. So yeah, when we talk about, and sorry, getting back to my point, when it comes to women, a lot of them who don't know about weight training will say, I want to get toned. We also, as our job as trainers, as well as exercise specialists, need to educate them that you can't tone a muscle. And you also, that's the thing. A lot of them, I think, say that because they're really concerned about getting too big. If they lift a little bit of weight, they're gonna get too jacked. Yeah, muscle does not come that easily, especially at our age. And you look at guys who train 6 days a week purely for hypertrophy and they still don't get super jacked. And unfortunately, it's not their fault. It's social media. There's a lot of women out there on social media, fitness influencers, who are actually on PEDs, so performance enhancing drugs, steroids. And obviously I don't think apart from like IFBB female pros, I just don't see any other female admitting that they're on steroids, because it's so stigmatized. It's already stigmatized amongst men, let alone for women. So what you end up seeing is women saying, oh, well, I just do this. I weight train 5 days a week. I eat well, I sleep well and whatnot. And this is why I'm super jacked. And it's like, yeah, no, you're definitely shooting something, because you're more jacked than some of the guys that are clearly natural. Yeah, you definitely got a super physiological amount of test in your body, right? It's not achievable naturally. And that's why a lot of women, like from the general population, will believe that, well, if they train 5 days a week and look like that, I should probably only train twice a week. So then I don't end up getting too big and jacked. Yeah, no, you're being lied to. I'm sorry, but a lot of these women are on gear. You look at CrossFitters, yeah, 99.9% of them, I'm willing to bet my bottom dollar on it, that they're on steroids. Don't try to model your training based on what elite athletes do, because as a wise man once said, everybody's on steroids. That's my boy Nate Diaz from the UFC, but he's from the inside. I believe him, really. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was on it too. It's part of elite sports. It's just how it is. So for women out there who might be watching, or if you're a guy watching my channel, because most of my audience are men, tell your wives, don't worry about it. You will not get jacked. Don't worry. It's very difficult. Unless if you have some, genetic mutation like Eddie Hall's one. I forgot what it's called. What's the mutation? But you basically are able to synthesize more protein and thus build a lot more muscle. Yeah, it's not happening. You're going to end up looking quote unquote toned if you train 4 or 5 days a week. And that's the thing. Most people aren't training intense enough to build that much muscle anyway. I look at 90% of people in the gym. Yeah, they train like crap. I'm sorry, but no intensity in your workouts. And the key part of building muscle is actually having intense workouts. So each set needs to get very close to failure in order to induce hypertrophy. Most people are not even close to that. So don't worry about building too much muscle. Jesus. Sorry, that's a bit of a rant, but yeah, it does annoy me when people somehow think it's really easy to build muscle. It's not, okay? So that pretty much sums up the topic. If you all have any questions, please comment below. Definitely subscribe, and I'll be back for more. Catch y'all in a bit.